Alright. I'm pretty low on tobaccos. However, that's not what this video is about, is it? There were 5 homeless people shot between Washington, D.C. and New York. You won't listen to me, but now the news is saying something about it, so you might give a shit. Kind of like the situation there in Hardin, Montana. You didn't want to hear me when I spoke up about all the missing people, but when people continued to disappear, then you wanted to blame me, pretend like I'm some sort of a monster for being a good person. God damn, I'm getting used to that, ain't I? Now, there's a saying, if you have to tell people you're a nice guy, chances are you're probably not. Well, I'm a pretty fucking nice guy in real life. I'm not such a nice guy when it comes to people killing my friends. I'm not such a nice guy when it comes to people molesting kids. I'm not such a nice guy when it comes to racism or sexism. And I'm sure as shit not a very nice guy when it comes to police brutality. I was an extremely good person. When Natalie disappeared, people were surprised to hear anything horrible about me at all. But then, of course, with me being prevented from speaking up, me being cut off from the resources needed to even contact my loved ones or contact the witnesses or contact any of the people that I needed for help repeatedly, going to people who had really no interest in actually helping, people who had it in their idea, in their heads it's a good idea. In their heads they want to help me. They got this version of me in their heads. That's the problem with most of y'all. You got this version of me in your head that has nothing to do with reality. Like all those people that had me raised up on a pedestal in Boulder. I wasn't fucking trying to stand on a pedestal. I was trying to fucking get help myself. I figured if I helped enough people out, people would eventually get the point. People complaining all the time, man, I've been at this for fucking 4 years, I'm still homeless. Well, have you gone in with somebody? No, dude, fucking nobody will go in with me. Well, I'll go in with you. I'll go in with you. And that's what it took. When I say somebody in person, I mean it. And so many people wanted to say they understood. Say that they understood about the time crunch. That they understood about the statute of limitations. That they understood about the abuse. That they were going to come forward and tell the truth. But then again, if they understood, they would have done that. I wouldn't have had to explain it to them hundreds of times in some cases. Yes, some of these people I had to explain it to over 100 times. Literally over 100 times. Now, with all these homeless people being victimized and being murdered, and finally they're saying something about it on the mainstream media, sort of. Kind of like they sort of mentioned it when Kelly Thomas was killed. They sort of mentioned it, just like they sort of mentioned Daniel Kitlitz, who is my friend, and he is dead. For the same reason Natalie is dead. For the same reason that Tibor Hatay is dead. Because I wasn't heard. All those people that Boulder is paying out money to. Zaid Atkinson, Waylon Lolatai was one of his predators too. If they'd have done something about Waylon Lolatai, he wouldn't have been there with a shotgun. Michelle Rodriguez, same thing. She never would have been assaulted by Waylon Lolatai if I'd have been heard. Both of those situations cost over $200,000 to the taxpayers of Boulder, Colorado. That's just between Zaid Atkinson and Michelle Rodriguez. And then there's the situation with Sammy Leon Lawrence IV, another nearly $100,000. Then there's the $3.2 million given to the family of Seth Franco. Now, I don't know if Waylon Lolatai was involved in that, but he was involved in the others. And those weren't the only people that Waylon Lolatai assaulted in 2018. My predators have a long history of doing the things that you guys want to pretend that I'm schizophrenic for saying that they did those things to me. For trying to get help getting the evidence. I was repeatedly victimized by people who claimed to be my friends, who said, hey, if you do this or you do that, or you jump through this hoop or you jump through that hoop, I'll help you do it. And when those resources were completely gone and those hoops had all been jumped through and they got absolutely nowhere, that's when those people threw me away. And you damn right I was pissed off. And then they wanted to play victim because I was pissed off. These are things that we should be pissed off about. People are dead. Anna would probably still be alive if it hadn't been for this situation. Rory would probably still be dead. He died of a heart attack. Janine would probably still be dead. She died of a heart attack. But there's a lot of people who are dead because of this. And a lot of people who are dead because I was not heard. Now, mind you, the situation with Tibor Hatay, I was sent to Clearview because I was trying to turn in Waylon Lolatai. If I had not been sent to Clearview, I wouldn't have known for certain about the way that they treat people in there, and I would have had nothing to speak out about. And as a result, Tibor Hatay, his death would have absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I wasn't heard. The fact that Waylon Lolatai had assaulted all of these people after he assaulted me. If I hadn't been forced into a situation where I was abused myself by Waylon Lolatai, I'd have had nothing to speak out about. But what's the difference between those people and me? Those people had actual help in person. Those people weren't forced into homelessness while being repeatedly and overwhelmingly victimized by both the public and law enforcement. I don't need your pretty fucking words. I need help, actual help. The help that I came here to provide to Rebecca is exactly the help that I need. And now that doesn't mean that I expect her to help me how I need. I really don't. I can hope, but it is not an expectation. The expectations that I had were from people who promised that they were going to help. Yeah. Oh my God. Don't smoke the filter. Oh my. Oh my God. Maybe there's a bigger one in here. Oh my God. That is totally on the level with nasty. Don't smoke the filters. Holy shit. Anyway, Dan is a witness to a lot of the stuff that's gone on. And a bit of it is a few years old, so there's that too. Here's my telephone. I'll give him a call, though. Homelessness is up by quite a bit. Crimes against homeless are up by quite a bit. That's the manager. She's a real sweet lady. Now, there's a woman, Chloe Roma. She's got a group called Roma Army Men's Rights. Now, she does fight for men's rights, but she's also been through her own hell. Some of the things that she speaks out about include the fact that, well, the person who sexually abused her was one of her parents, and it wasn't her father. And she speaks openly about all of that. Sometimes with tears in her eyes. She also speaks about being victimized the same way that I am, because she fights for men's rights. Having people pretend like she's doing things that she isn't, or like they saw her places that she was nowhere near, and calling in bogus bullshit to have her locked up, gaslighting the fuck out of her. And I'm supposed to talk to Investigator Woods. I got his phone number, but I need somebody to make the call with me. And it needs to be during business hours of the Nebraska State Patrol. I think there's a 2 or 3 hour difference here. 2 hour difference here than there is in Chapel, Nebraska, and Scottsbluff, Nebraska. 3 hour difference between here and North Platte. So by the time it's 2 o'clock here, it's usually about the time they're going on lunch break in Chapel or in Scottsbluff, which is where Nebraska State Patrol Troop E is. I'm about to call Dan up. At least inform one person about what's going on, you know? Let's see. I know it's on here somewhere. There's also a couple of people who offered to help. One of them offered me some housing, and then he disappeared for a few months. And then he offered it again, and then he disappeared for a few more months. Last time he said he was because he was in jail. That does present a big problem for me as far as having a safe environment. I mean, I don't know if he owns this place or not, or if he's just renting it, or if there'll be issues with paying the bills if he's locked up, or if he's got a situation where he's likely to be locked up repeatedly. Let's see if this will work.
Hello.
Hey, Dan.
What's happening? I just let my dog out.
Well, I was looking at a lot of the situation here. You know, a lot of the people that were with the news said that they felt bad for me, but that, you know, people didn't care anymore and that it wasn't popular and so on and so forth. And the fact is, everything they said about that was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, Waylon Lolatai, if they'd have listened to me, he would not have had the opportunity to assault 6 more people in 2018. The biggest issue is having to deal with a bunch of web wingnuts that, like, how do I get a hold of them? How do I subpoena them for court?
Yeah.
Like with you, it's not too complicated. You're a real person who uses your real name.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But like a lot of the people that helped me out that actually did stuff, like I don't know who the hell they are. I know that
I
trying
know.
to find them, their profile is a bogus profile. Even the ones that swore up and down that it was their real profile, that was their real name, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I just don't know why people do that. I don't get it. What do they have to hide?
I don't know. But I that's a lot of the stuff that I want to be able to send you. At the same time, I don't want to explode your phone or get it too full.
Yeah, I wish I had my internet going. They don't have much internet options out here either, so I'm kind of out in the country in the middle of nowhere, so
Yeah, same thing
I'm
in
still
Chapel,
kind of,
Nebraska.
yeah, still kind of working on getting everything set up out here, so
You get the snail net.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So, yeah, I don't even have I have an electric box, but I got wires going out there into this place, so I don't even have electric in the walls yet. This place it's like a little shack right now. I'm just going to have to build up on it every year. But it's nice to be out in the country. I
Well,
like
now
that.
you're in a position I was in not too long ago, just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was living at Ken and Leah's, the deal was I was going to pay him $50 a month to stay in a room that they had there, mostly because of Leah's depression. And then I ended up moving out to the garage because, God, she's fucking nuttier than squirrel turds. And then I ended up paying $75 a month, and then it ended up getting increased until I was actually paying $275 a month for renting there, for
Damn.
renting that fucking garage. Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, I bet.
That was almost that whole year before Natalie was killed. I was, matter of fact, Ken and Leah's was where I was staying when I walked to Miss Peach's, and I heard while I was at Miss Peach's that Miss Natalie was missing. Like I was going to Miss Peach's to try to get help turning in Ken and Leah for ripping me off, and of course the shit with Natalie that needed to be taken care of in court.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing with like you, for example, or Shannon. Like you know that the situation. Of course, when I told the story, I said it wrong because I said that the FBI had called and talked to you, and you said it was a Secret Service. So I mean, it's not like I intended to lie. I was trying to give the best information I had.
Yeah, I think it was Secret Service, right? I don't even remember now, but
And see, that's the thing with them not doing their jobs to investigate any of this from the very start is that there are so many people that are like, I don't even remember now. I don't even remember now.
yeah, it had to have been Secret Service, or I don't even know if they told me. I don't remember, but I don't know. Whatever I told you initially, I'm sure was accurate. I wouldn't think it'd be the FBI. I would say more Secret Service would deal with that, wouldn't you?
Yep. And see, that's a situation that they repeatedly used against me to prevent me from having an honest court date too. I'm like, here's the thing, like, it's only related if it's something that you can use against me, and then it's magically not related when it's something that can show what the hell's actually going on. There's magically jurisdiction in the way when I'm trying to show evidence and show that people are doing this across multiple jurisdictions, but then jurisdiction magically doesn't exist when they're trying to frame me.
Yeah.
Like with you, you can verify that shit went down with the Secret Service, at least the part that you're aware of. And Shannon can admit that shit went down with Kara Johnson Miles and actually speak up about it. And that's the thing.
Now, I don't know about Kara Johnson Miles. You mean Missy?
Nope. Kara Johnson Miles is the lady who is pretending to be an autism advocate.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember much of that, but
well, there was a lot of people I was dealing with at the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, that one doesn't sound. I mean, I know the name, but I don't know the situation.
Yep.
Yeah, the Missy one I know well, but yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched all those videos. It was a few years back when I was watching all of them on YouTube, or actually, I think it was Facebook back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I was doing it on both, but there was a lot of people that apparently weren't paying attention to my Facebook. Like when Mandy Hughes was all sorts of pissed off at me. Like she was gonna go in with me and talk to the cops, and every single time there was some reason why she magically couldn't. Somebody's sick, or somebody got beat up, or some court stuff happened, or now she's magically got warrants and stuff like that. And a lot of people did that to me. They said they were gonna help. They did the same thing that Missy did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that they didn't help at all. It's that they weren't speaking up, and they never did. But see, that's another thing is that Mandy, she said that she watched all my videos. So when I was explaining to her about the videos that I recorded between me and her, like when it was a big surprise to her, I was like, holy fuck, of all the people that I would expect it not to be a surprise to, this is the one lady who I would expect it not to be a surprise to.
Mm.
And she got all sorts of pissed off. She even tried working together with my other predators in order to try to justify the things that she did. She tried telling Shannon Alvarado that the cops told her I was just a manipulator. Like, fuck, that's all of humanity.
Mm.
All humans are manipulators. You want to manipulate the cops into doing their jobs? That's just stupid. You shouldn't have to manipulate them into doing their jobs. You're already paying them to do their jobs.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to manipulate your friends into telling the truth. If they're your friends, they should want to tell the truth. Am I wrong?
No, that's definitely right.
So a lot of people that are pissed off that I recorded it and put it on YouTube, like, shit, this is the stuff all these people should have spoken up about when it happened. And instead, they made me record it months and months and months later after repeated victimization because they weren't speaking up.
Yeah.
People don't understand how powerful their words are, but their words don't mean shit if they never use them.
Yeah.
So when you were asking which news agencies and which states to send it to, I don't even know. That's one of the issues with a lot of people that were like, yeah, Sean, I want to come forward. I want to explain what's going on and how fucked up the situation is, but who do I talk to? And with me, like right at the very beginning, I'd called literally everybody there was to call as far as all these agencies go within like a week of Natalie disappearing. I'd called most of them before Natalie disappeared.
Yeah, you've called everybody.
And that's something that if I say it, I get treated like I'm schizophrenic and making it up and I hallucinated it. These phone calls are on my YouTube channel. It's not like people can't find them. It's not like I didn't try to get people to make the phone calls with me. There's a few occasions where people did make phone calls with me. Right now, the Nebraska State Patrol, I mean, they're not going to investigate, but one of their officers called me last week, and I can't call him back until I can find somebody who can actually make the call with me.
Mm.
So I'm having a big pain in the ass with all of that. I thought about asking you, but you're not really all that much better with technology shit than I am.
Well, I've done that most of my life, technology. I was an engineer.
Well, I mean, like, setting up three-way calls and stuff so that we can all speak and so that it actually can be recorded. That's one thing that is pretty universal between the situation with Layla Johnson and Kara Johnson Miles and the situation with Cara Rogers, aka Cara Mia, the thing with Aaron Cockerham, the situation with Miss Peaches, the situation with Mandy Hughes, all these people who said that they went in and talked to the police, and none of them can even tell me what officer they spoke to. None of them have any evidence whatsoever that they ever made a police report about the things that they said that they did. I just have to take their word for it. But then again, I saved their words. I saved conversations with them saying and telling me that they did these things. I saved the screenshots in the messenger of them telling me that they did these things. Now, if they did these things, why didn't the cops listen to any of us? Why did the cops only listen to my predators? And there's two very easy answers for that. Number one, they broke the law and they were well invested in making sure that none of that ever came out, or at least that nobody would hear me.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. I really don't. Like, if people are too scared to speak up, you see in all these other situations where people did speak up and they didn't go and hide in the corner, and these people weren't cut off from being able to speak to the public and show the truth. They got a much different outcome.
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure. Have you seen the news in the last few days?
News about what?
Well, the rampant slaughter of homeless people nationwide.
No, I've been watching a lot of the news about the war, but that's about it, really. I don't usually watch the news at all. It's too depressing.
I agree, and that's why I used to not watch the news at all. But the Ukraine thing, that really sucked me in, because I do recognize the consequences of that whole fucking scenario.
Yeah, I've been watching that, quite a bit,
But also, as a homeless American, it is important for me to pay attention to the news when it comes to homeless Americans.
right.
Kind of like there's a lot of black folks who are glued to the TV when the BLM stuff comes on.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it does have to do with them, every one of them. Now, I still fight for the rights of minorities. It's not like I'm some dude who's going to hate all minorities because some minorities are racist fucking pricks. But at the same time, I'm still going to call out the racist pricks, no matter what color they are.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
But, a lot of this, it's ongoing. I'm going to have to take this abuse for the rest of my life unless people speak up about what they know. Shannon Alvarado, she wasn't getting how important the knowledge that she had really was. Like, if she'd have spoken up, I wouldn't have had to break the law. And Kara Johnson Miles, the things that she was allowed to get away with slandering my name in court, Shannon Alvarado is the one that sent me the evidence of what that woman was doing. They were up to no good, and I was never allowed to show it. So with each and every one of these people, like, they all have parts that they can verify, and each one of their individual parts shows the truth. But they're like, oh, well, I wasn't there for the situation with Natalie. You know what? They were there for the abuse, and that's the thing, is that it's all about Natalie. All these people care about is Natalie, 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 Natalie. When Natalie died, blah, blah, blah. When Natalie's killer was found, it was all over, and this is how it is in their heads. Like, magically, everything that the cops did to me and everything that the public has done to me, like, they magically stopped, and they didn't. That's not the way they operate. People keep telling me to let it go, but did they do anything about my predators? No, they didn't. And that's why I couldn't and still can't let it go. Did they tell Alicia Bollinger and Ted Bollinger and their whole family to let it go? No, they didn't. They helped those people to get away with their crimes. And that's the thing, Dan, is that without people doing what it is that the people who were helping the Bollingers were doing, which is speak up, all of that evidence that I was trying to show to all of you guys so that you could actually get it sent to somebody who would look at it. And I posted it up in public so that anybody could. And the only people who bothered to send anything in are the ones who were cherry picking the little pieces they could use out of context. Now, you read the whole thing between me and Natalie, and Mandy Singer, she got to read the whole thing, like, on my Facebook, so she got to verify it's not something that I magically made up. It's not some magic profile that I'm just pretending to be Natalie. I mean, it's got the dates that those things were typed and the time and everything.
Yeah, I definitely read it.
Well, that's the thing, is that's something that you can speak up about. When I tried explaining to everybody, I'm not allowed to speak because I'm called mentally ill. That's the one thing that...
When you say speak up, I mean, speak up who do you want me to speak up to? I know you say that all the time, but I guess
Anyone, when you're called mentally ill, anybody that you have to speak to, as far as the Department of Health and Human Services, as far as anyone who works for the government, you have to have somebody else there. And by law, they were supposed to provide somebody. I was supposed to have an advocate from day one.
so by me speaking up, you think that's gonna? I don't know. It's just, I just think everybody's just so confused with the situation.
Well, it wasn't all that confusing at the very beginning. The part that was confusing was the fact that I didn't have a place that I could have some peace and quiet to just sit down and work on it.
Well, and that's what I was trying to do, but you said that wasn't enough.
Well,
I
you
was
you were
constantly trying to get you a place to
you
stay.
absolutely were, and see that's another thing that people aren't willing to pay attention to. I keep getting told that I wasn't trying to get help and so on and so forth, and that comment right there shows that not only was I trying to get help, but that people were trying to help me. You know, all of those situations where people were trying to help me and the cops were going out of their way to cut me off from that help, or I was having to deal with situations where I'm having to rely on people who are drug addicts or alcoholics in person to try to help me. Like when you rented that room for me there, the Super 8 motel there in Longmont,
Mhm.
like when you rented that room for a couple of days, you know, I had the room. The problem
Right.
was, like, I'd already been there for 3 days. I was waiting on Brian Townsend to help me, and he was fucking around with pawning his ring and then unpawning it. And his brother was in town, and he was visiting with him. And there was another friend of his from out of town, and then there was the fact that that dude who worked at the front desk really didn't like Mark Townsend or his brother, was accusing them of selling drugs out the back door and stuff like that. Like, it just turned into a big mess. But the thing
Yeah,
is,
so,
you did help me to get the place to sit down and work on it. But then the
and
help that I go ahead.
we tried to get you to, what was the other place that was you were gonna go live there for a while. We tried to get you out there.
The Pueblo or
Was it-
Montana?
Oh, Montana. What were those two girls' names?
That was Jerry Sparks and Lana Engeline and Amanda
Lana,
Engeline. Yep.
So we got that. Yeah, so I mean, we definitely were trying to do that at one point. I just felt like it was never enough.
Well, it was never happening. That's the biggest issue, is that, like, it was only for a couple of days, so I've only got a couple of days to work on it, and I worked on it the best I could. But none of that solved the fact that I still needed someone there in person with me so that I could turn it in safely. When you try to turn in police, they're not nice to you. They'll threaten you, they'll harass you, they'll intimidate you, they'll arrest you, they'll send you to a nuthatch, they'll send you to jail. They don't fucking care. The one thing that I have needed since well before Natalie even disappeared, I needed someone there in person with me so the cops would take it seriously, so that Adult Protective Services would take it seriously, so the Department of Health and Human Services would take it seriously. Like, I jumped through all those hoops to get disability because I was told once you jump through those hoops, what these people are doing to you is a felony and the state will step in. They have to legally. And I jumped through all those hoops. And instead of them doing what it is that they're supposed to do by law, they did exactly the opposite. They went, oh, well, he's autistic, so he must be retarded. So, he must be hallucinating all of this stuff. And it's not like I didn't save the evidence or send it out. How much evidence have you seen?
Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of videos and all that kind of stuff, definitely.
A lot of screenshots too.
Yeah.
But people are selling this narrative that people like you who got to see the evidence, the narrative is not true because you saw the evidence.
Yeah.
But who else is looking at it? And with my technical abilities, I don't have the ability to send this stuff. So I try to find somebody who's got computer skills who can help me. The last person who tried to help me as far as computer stuff goes, he erased an entire computer worth of evidence.
Yeah.
And I paid him for it. Although I actually paid him for the time because he did spend time there with the intention, I suppose, of helping me. But the problem is he should have been honest about his computer skills.
Yeah.
When I was at Shannon's, Rick was going to help me with the computer stuff. And, when they're arguing, nobody's going to help me. They're busy arguing. And I'm not a bad person for saying that. People want to be mad at me because their personal business is out there. And that's the thing, is that when you are in that environment, it is your personal business. It is your business as well. If you're in an environment that's constantly streaming, you are still in that environment. If you're in an environment where people are being beaten up, you're still witnessing that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to insinuate that Shannon is violent, because she's not violent at all. Like, as far as physical violence goes, no, not even close.
Yeah, you said that.
But the reason I was asking about the news is because there's a lot of people on the news in the last few days who are dead. And of course, it's not going to have the same kind of attention as Gabby Petito or even Natalie Bollinger, but at least it's something. At least it shows a little bit more care than we've gotten in the last few years.
Yeah, so that's happening in the United States?
Yep.
And what's the reason for that? Why have so many died recently?
Well, partially because things are bad, and when things are bad, people take it out on whoever they feel they can get away with victimizing, and that just happened. The easiest people to victimize are the homeless.
Or is it just because now it just got noticed? It's been happening forever. It just, for some reason, it came out recently.
Oh no, it's been happening forever, but the
Right.
drastic increase is what's been happening recently. I mean, we're talking about a 60% increase in homelessness and a 75% increase in crimes against the homeless.
Okay.
They're talking about how horrible it is that, so many homeless people have been killed in like a 10-year period, and how many violent acts are committed against them. And in a 10-year period, they only counted 500 and something deaths and a little over like 1,500 hate crime or violent crimes against the homeless. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute.
You've seen that in your time.
I've seen more than that just in 1 year living in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're the doctors, the numbers that they're using are completely doctored. It's kind of like a lot of people are saying about black folks, how, a lot of the numbers for black people being locked up is based on, the numbers of incarcerations, but it's not based on the number of people who are actually guilty, because you don't have to be guilty when you're broke, whether you're black or white or homeless or whatever. A lot of those numbers, they don't actually reflect that black people are committing all of those crimes. It actually reflects that those are the people that the cops are actually pursuing.
Right.
Those are the ones that the cops are like, I'm not going to get in trouble if I just nudge a little bit and, maybe tell a couple of little lies to have this guy convicted, because then it looks better for all of us and everybody feels safer.
Easier target.
Yep. But still, I mean, the easiest targets are homeless, disabled males. I mean, that makes you the easiest person to target in this country. The only way to make it easier is if you were 80 years old and black. And that's something that a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're racist. You're not willing to admit that the cops are doing racist stuff. I'm like, shit, I know there's racism. I've seen the racism. I know the different places that I've been that are extremely racist, and I know the ones that cater to minorities, and Boulder very much caters to minorities. If they do something horrible to a minority, you can be pretty self-assured that the cops thought that minority was a homeless person, or you never hear about it because the minority actually was a homeless person. So, like, because this happened across so many jurisdictions and in so many places, basically it needs to be sent to all of them.
Yeah.
It needs to be sent to the courts in Boulder, and it needs to be sent to every news station that anybody can possibly think of, and bombard them with evidence that shows that the narrative that they sold was bullshit. Bombard them with witnesses. The phone calls that I recorded with people, like before I was locked up in Arapahoe County, for 7 months, people were promising to help me how I needed, and I was wasting all my resources to try to get the help I needed and to also run to all of these court dates and other appointments that you have to go to because of court dates. I didn't have any money to do a damn thing. I didn't have the money to jump through their hoops, and when they didn't keep their word, it was devastating. And it still is, especially since I have the evidence. I need them to speak up so I can get the evidence seen. And as far as appealing to the public, yes, that's the only thing that works. The more people speak up, the more people listen. And that's something that, like, if everybody had spoken up at once, it would have made a lot of difference. But for example, when my little sister was there and we had the recordings of the situation with her, a lot of people were looking. When I was able to post up the thing between me and the licensed mental health care professional that I went to, she's licensed to diagnose somebody as schizophrenic. She says I'm not schizophrenic. She says I'm not bipolar. These are the excuses that Scott DaCosta used to not do his job, was that I was supposedly schizophrenic and bipolar. She also said I got PTSD. And when those people come forward and say that stuff, that's when people start to actually pay attention. Like, hey, yeah, he's telling the truth. But then it peters out because I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off without the resources to do what I need to do. And there's people who are like, oh, well, I sent you $50 8 months ago. Why are you still homeless? When have you ever heard of somebody being able to rent a place on $50?
Yeah.
It's possible. I rented that place at Ken and Leah's for $50.
Well, and nowadays 50 just doesn't do anything.
It don't. Like, most of my money has already gone into gas. My vehicle is really good on gas, and I only drive between here and the park and ride, but I also use it to keep warm at night.
Yeah.
There's no overnight camp spots open quite yet. So, like, there's also the fact that I can't carry all of my evidence. There's just too much of it. My whole vehicle is full. But then that means I have to find a place to park my vehicle.
Yeah.
I gotta hope everything's safe. I gotta hope it doesn't get towed.
What kind of car is it?
Another Honda Civic.
Oh, yeah, they're nice.
They are real good on gas. This one's a piece of shit. I actually, you're gonna laugh about this. I tied my bumper on yesterday with baling wire or baling twine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Those Civics are unstoppable.
I also used a couple of paper clips.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So
shit, I got a 96 Buick Roadmaster that's still kicking. Almost 30 years old.
Yeah, mine's I want to say either a 94 or a 96.
Damn.
Yep, it's old. Definitely old. Well, when you were asking who to write it to and who to get a hold of, the FBI is one of them. Myself and at least 4 other people have tried to go to the IC3 site and some of the other sites that the FBI is supposed to be able to get, reach out to them and get a hold of them, but none of us have been able to get it to work. Not even Mandy Singer, and she spent a few years as a techie.
Yeah, the FBI is gonna laugh at us.
Well, as long as it's recorded.
Yeah.
As long as it's recorded that the effort was made. That's one of the biggest things with a lot of the efforts. I had to make most of the efforts to go in. I had to do that myself, despite people's promises. And the things that I said would happen if I had to go in myself did happen. and the things that I said would happen if nobody went in, including myself, that these people would get away with it, like that was not a joke either.
Yeah.
But it's also got to go to Dual County. It's got to go to Scotts Bluff. That's part of the thing about having someone involved in making the phone calls with me. Like that's somebody who's actually a witness, but then that person has to be willing to actually speak up about it too.
Yeah.
Now then there's Sarah. She was trying to help me, or wanted to help me, and she just didn't for years and years. And then she finally got back a hold of me, and she was like, I'm sorry I didn't help like I said I would. She apologized and explained that she was on a lot of alcohol at the time, and now she's got leukemia. My friend Amanda, her mom died last year, and she's having a real rough time with that. And, with you losing people, and then my autism advocate all the way in Lincoln, she's telling me there's not a lot she can do because she's got cancer, and like, holy hell. It's messed up, Dan.
They just need to blow up this whole world. Start over again.
Right? I've said that, and I've been told I'm a horrible person for saying that. But you know what?
Well, I agree with you 100%.
In that
This place is a
situation,
disaster.
it's not about making people suffer. It's about ending the suffering and starting
Yeah,
over.
absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot more pain than there is pleasure in this world. That's for sure.
Why can't we just be good to each other? Because we're not allowed.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what it all comes down to. Society will not allow us to be good to each other.
Yeah, it's just, and then this sex trafficking thing too is just astonishes me. I guess some babies were stolen out of Ukraine for sex trafficking recently too. And you've talked about it, and that's just beyond disgusting to me. I just can't even imagine.
What's beyond disgusting to me is the number of people who can just ignore it.
Yeah. I actually, to be honest, I didn't even know, I guess until the last couple of years, that stuff like that even existed. I guess I hid from the news too much because I had no clue that was going on in the United States.
Well, I was telling you about it. I guess within the last...
It could have been from you.
years,
Yeah, maybe.
It probably was. That's one of the things that while I was in prison, I never stopped trying to get them to do something. The problem is when you're in prison, those guards assume that you're guilty. They assume that you're there because you're a felon who's convicted. And the fact is, I wasn't convicted of shit. I wasn't even charged with felonies. I was charged with misdemeanors, and they had to drop the charges. But they only charged me with those misdemeanors because they were literally the officers that I was trying to turn in. And they did exactly what I said they would if the Nebraska State Patrol didn't do their job. And they continually forced me to go to the Dual County Sheriff's Department. The Dual County Sheriff's Department was going to continue to help out my predators. They were going to continue to either fucking lock me up on bogus bullshit or send me to Scotts Bluff and tell them that I'm schizophrenic or bipolar. And that's exactly what they did over and over again. And I kept on saying, they keep on doing this. I need you to step in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about sending those videos in and posting links to them so that people can actually listen to them. So they can actually say, hey, I listened to the phone call between Sean and such. It's not like he didn't make an effort. And here in the court paperwork, it says this is in direct contradiction to the actual evidence. Why didn't you bother with looking at evidence?
Yeah.
There's also the fact that so many of my predators by name, like Waylon Lolatai, by name specifically, Waylon Lolatai assaulted me. And then specifically, Waylon Lolatai assaulted at least 6 other people on camera. And then Waylon Lolatai was specifically on the news for doing those things. And they specifically forgot about me.
you the only homeless one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nearly all of them were either homeless at the time or assumed to be homeless because of where they were at, the way they were dressed, and who they were talking to. But I was the only one who was actually homeless. I was also the only one who was targeted as if he was a fucking murderer or a rapist or a fucking child molester. So, I mean, there's that too. But then you look back through all the evidence, it shows obviously I'm not a fucking sex offender. I'm not on the registry. Obviously, Joseph Michael Lopez is in prison for fucking killing Natalie. Obviously, I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucked up because all of my predators, I've got evidence that the things that I said about them was right. It was the truth. Like, out of all these people, I'm the only one out of all of the folks who have associated with the situation with Natalie as far as her family goes. I'm the only one that is not a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got evidence of Danica being a drug addict. I've got evidence of Rochelle Shelley Campbell being a drug addict, and Ted Bollinger being a drug addict, and Alicia Bollinger being a drug addict, and their mother being an alcoholic. And, you know, that's the thing, is that they've got people who slandered my name, slandered me, and said that I was on drugs, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, there's no evidence of drug use with me. There's none. You look at all of my UAs, they're all clean. The worst you're going to find in them is marijuana, if that. And most of these places, they didn't give me a UA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things with, like, with you, you know a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that, you know, you haven't been a part of in the last couple of years that, you know, that's not, obviously you can't speak up about any of that stuff because you weren't a part of it. And that's with everybody. I'm not asking them to tell the whole story. I'm asking them to tell the parts that they're aware of, the parts that they were a part of, the parts that, you know, they can go back and take those screenshots. And the reason that the law, you know, is written the way that it is, where these guys have to do something, they can't just let it go for 5 years like they've done, is specifically because of situations like this, where I've got to deal with people like Jen Beebe who says, oh, well, I can't remember, it's been too long. And people like, well, a lot of people who said they can't remember because it's been too long. A lot of people say, well, I don't have access to that evidence anymore because my phone broke, or my kid put the phone in the toilet, or I got a new service, or I got locked up, or, you know, whatever the situation happens to be. And then I'm right back at ground zero. Then there's the fact that the Bollingers had a lot of help. They had a lot of people looking this stuff up and helping them with every step of it. And for me, we spent all of our time and resources just trying to find me a safe place.
Yeah.
I still don't have one. At Shannon's, I wasn't afraid she was going to hit me or anything like that. How do you function when people are screaming and alcoholic at each other?
Yeah.
And I get that she doesn't want the whole world to know that, but the whole world didn't need to know that. She could have actually kept her word instead of acting that way because she was drunk. But a lot of people like to say, well, it's not my fault this happened, and it's not my fault that happened. And here's the thing. There's a lot of things that they say that about that are also not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon's drinking is not my fault. Layla Johnson not being who she claimed to be is not my fault. Daniel Apathy not being who he claimed to be is not my fault. The cops assaulting me is not my fault. My friends not keeping their word, that's not my fault. People playing victim after they got busted lying out their ass, that's not my fault. So what's your shed like?
What's my what?
Your shed.
Oh, it's just a little tiny shed. Got my lawnmower and snow blower. That's about it.
Well, it's bigger than the last shed I had. The one over at
Oh, yeah.
Dallas was only 4 foot by 4 foot, and it had a bench in there, and it had all my stuff in it. Plus, I was staying in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty tiny.
The video of me when I was trying to turn in Scott DaCosta is actually made in that little dinky shed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. People look at poverty and then they like to point out poverty as an excuse to try to say that somebody's crazy or mentally ill or nuts or something. Like me living in a garage, it's because I like building stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. All right, man. I need to get some food.
All right. I'm sorry for talking your ear off.
Yeah, that's all right, man.
Be safe, Dan.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
He's not the first person to ask that question. A lot of people have asked that question. A lot of people claim that they would speak up. They just needed to know who to talk to. It took me 4 years with the Nebraska State Patrol for them to admit that it was their job to investigate Scott DaCosta. 4 years just to get him to admit that one little piece. It's pretty obvious why somebody who is called mentally ill needs someone there in person. And if they don't have someone there in person because they were slandered and people are afraid, that's not their fault. False accusations are not the fault of the victim. They're not. I am the victim. Leslie Snell is a predator. Alicia Bollinger chose to be a predator, same as Leslie Snell did. Same as Danica Garner did. Same as Rochelle Shelley Campbell did. They chose to do these things. And primarily it was women who did these things. Why? Because they're the ones that we have taught that it is okay for them to do these things and they will get away with it. We must assume that these women could never possibly do anything wrong because they don't have the right genitalia for sinning. They don't have the right genitalia to be lawbreakers. That's just insane. All right, that one's pretty short. If I smoke that, I'm going to fucking choke to death, and I can still taste the last cigarette butt that I lit. Oh my God, that was nasty. Now let's get back to the situation with Rebecca. Rebecca does need help. However, it doesn't seem like she's going to get it organized at all, and it doesn't seem like she's going to be able to coordinate well enough to work with someone to get it organized. I'm not sure what to do in this situation. I've been waiting here, and I'm about, hour and a half away from Portland. So, I am pretty decently close. But I also use up my gas trying to keep myself warm. I make sure that I have enough for coffee so I can go into Starbucks and use their internet. When that money's out, it's out. I've got less than $100 to try to live the rest of the month on. I actually have close to $200 altogether, but there's a lady who lent me $100 last month so that I could actually survive the month. And I need to pay her back. And so I haven't spent that money. She hasn't gotten back a hold of me or even seen the messages that I've sent her, though. I need to get her, what do you call that? The area code there, not for the phone, the zip code, that's what it is. I got to get the postal code for her before I can actually send the money. On the bright side, the whole Walmart MoneyGram thing is pretty easy. A lot of times people say, "Oh, well, I want to send you some money. I want to send you some money," and then I tell them, "Well, the only way to really do it, unless you can help me set up another payment system. If you want me to have PayPal, you got to help me set it up. Not tell me how to do it or tell me that I need to do it. You got to teach me how to do it. You actually have to help me with it. Otherwise, Walmart's about the only option I got." So a lot of people, when they're one example is this guy Keats. I'm not sure what his full name is. I could probably look it up, but he's called me up a couple of times and tells me that he wants to send me some money, but then he wants to talk about himself a whole bunch, or he does listen to me a little bit, but then he wants to go back to. I think he's an alcoholic because he keeps going back to the same thing, and he admits that he drinks and that he was drinking. So I mean it's tough to say. It's kind of like with Shannon Alvarado. I did notice that the time that she spent talking with me versus the time that she didn't before I went to her place, after I had been there and realized when her drinking starts and when it ends, it occurred to me that the only time that she really took the time and spent the time to actually converse with me before I went there to California was when she was drunk. I don't hate Shannon Alvarado for being an alcoholic. She's sure as fuck pissed off at me about saying something, though, isn't she? And that's the risk that you run when you have people with substance abuse issues, that you have to ask for help, especially if you were in a subservient position. If I'd left Shannon Alvarado's with all the stuff that I had, I couldn't have gone. I couldn't. There's no way that I would be able to carry all of that stuff anywhere at all. I'd have had to move my bags, one of them at a time, and there were three of them. I would have had to move one of them at a time, 10 feet at a time, until I finally got somewhere. Meanwhile, I still needed to go through it. I still needed to wait for Graham to send the fucking box of evidence that he was supposed to send out. I'll send it out on Friday. I left there on a Thursday, so he was supposed to send it out the next day. Instead, it was 6 weeks later. 6 weeks of listening to Shannon Alvarado screaming nearly every night. I don't have any friends here. Rebecca's about the closest I got. She's in Portland. Where she's staying, there really isn't a place for me to even park. If I do park, it's for certainly not long term. I'm not rich. I can't just park in downtown Portland and continue to feed the meter. Now, if there was a place in Portland where we could go and we could actually work on stuff. Now, the library is a possibility, but there's a lot of stuff that we can't do at the library. There's a lot of phone calls we can't make at the library. Turning in paperwork can't really be done at the library. But at the library, hopefully, there's a library in Portland that's got a couple of private rooms, and maybe me and Rebecca could actually go and utilize one for a few hours to get everything sorted out, for her to actually explain it to me. She's been sending it to me in screenshots, and unlike most people, when I have somebody send me that stuff, I actually do read it. I don't say, "Oh, well, I saw all of it," and then 6 months down the road, "Oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about." Well, you'd have known what I was talking about if you'd have read what I sent you. Damn. Them's the breaks, ain't they? So with Rebecca right now, what she's been explaining to me is that she's still trying to piss people off. And then she's got to have an exit strategy, and I'm her exit strategy. Now she's trying to piss people off so she can get information out of them. Like why they never came forward. Like when she told on her predators, and her predators slandered the shit out of her and told all these other people in her life that her life was imagined, that it did not happen. And she just needed people to speak up, just like me, people who were not going to abandon her. Yes, she gets pissed off. She vents, same as I do. She curses too. Oh, heaven forbid a woman curse, right? Well, after what she's been through, I believe she has every right. And if it comes across as directed at me, I do recognize most of the time that it's not directed at me. She's venting. She's trying to get it off her chest. The things that her family was saying were lies are not lies. At least the parts that I was there for. She doesn't need me to verify everything that has happened to her in her life. She just needs me to verify the parts that I can. She did feed the homeless through Food Not Bombs in Colorado. They fed us vegan food. When she had an issue with Food Not Bombs, she was out there serving food on her own without Food Not Bombs, out of her own pocket, out of her own labor, out of her own efforts, making sure that street people were fed. But the people who abused her want to make her out to be some crazy lunatic. And she's not. And that's probably the worst thing there, is that they got away with doing the things that they did to her for the same reason that my predators got away with doing those things to me. Just call a homeless person mentally ill, anybody for that matter. You dramatically decrease their chances of being heard by anyone. If a rapist has a choice between the supermodel to the left or the mentally ill girl to the right, somebody might actually listen to the model on the left. That mentally ill girl, she's got a lot of challenges to step up to, though. Like the fact that nobody's going to listen to her because she's been called mentally ill. Maybe she tried to kill herself or tried to cut herself for attention, and now she's called mentally ill. Meanwhile, why did she try to kill herself? Why did she cut herself for attention? Because she was getting molested by daddy in most cases. But it's a two-part system there. See, the getting molested or raped alone is not what starts the cutting. It's also the fact that that young woman knows that she's not going to be heard. Now, the reason I say young woman, despite the fact that men cut too, is because women cut at 5 times the rate of boys, starting at the age of 15. That's because cutting is an attention-getting thing until you start getting into the deep cutting, which is in places that won't be seen when you're wearing shorts, places that won't be seen when you're wearing shirts. Some people like to cut themselves across the belly or the top of the thigh. Those ones are for the real deep hurt. When you realize no matter what, nobody's ever going to give a shit. Nobody's ever going to listen. People are going to be allowed to rape you and molest you and beat you for the rest of your life. And they're all going to get away with it because you were called mentally ill. People say, Sean, you need to just let it go. Yeah? I wonder how many people told Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. he needed to just let it go. I wonder how many people told Malcolm X that he just needed to let it go. I wonder how many people told Winston Churchill he needed to just let it go. I wonder how many people told Abraham Lincoln he just needed to let it go. There are things that you do not let go. like ongoing abuse. Mary Sue posted up some smiley faces going peace, 3 of them. So, hello, Mary Sue. You should type that up, of course, up in the comments here. It's not a hallucination, not a figment of my imagination. She really typed it. What I don't know is whether or not her name is really Mary Sue, but I do know that it is typed. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I am aware of my surroundings. I'm aware of the situation that I'm in. I'm living it. Some people, when they want to pretend that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to drugs and druggies, what they're not paying attention to is that I went into the system when I was 4 years old because my dad went to prison for 38 counts of cocaine possession with intent to sell. And my mom was in court-appointed rehab. Why? She just couldn't stay off the cocaine. All right, maybe if I rip the filter out altogether, I won't smoke it. The term mentally ill is horrible. I mentioned to Dan that I needed somebody to make that call with me. I completely forgot to ask him. That's because when I got to thinking about it, I was like, Dan might be one of those people who's as shitty with internet stuff as I am. But then I got to talking to him about it, and I completely forgot to ask, didn't I? Anyway, if your name isn't really Mary Sue, please don't take offense to me saying that. And even if it is, please don't take offense to me saying that. The reason I say that is because I get so many trolls on here. People who are not using their real names, people who make fake profile accounts for Facebook or YouTube, claim that they're going to do something that they don't. Or they make these fake profiles and get on here just to complain at me, tell me things like, I'm sick of hearing this, which is funny to me because they're coming to my page to hear it. You go to somebody's page to hear what they're saying, and then you want to complain that you're sick of hearing it. Well, there's a quick solution to that. Just don't come back. If you notice on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and all these other platforms, it's all about the likes, isn't it? It's all about the popularity. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Even when all I had was those same 3 motherfuckers who pressed the "we don't like" button on every fucking video for literally years, even with that being the primary like or dislikes, most of it was dislikes from those people. Even with that unpopular shit going on, I never stopped my channel. I never stopped speaking out. It doesn't have to be popular to be the truth. And just because the truth is unpopular does not mean that I owe it to you to shut up. I don't owe it to you to continue to take abuse just because you don't want to hear about it. I don't. Instead of this being between me, the Bollingers, and an arbiter, which is what should have happened, it was between me and part of Natalie's family who wanted to pretend like they were going to help me, but they were working together with internet nut jobs who are my predators, who are also working with other Bollingers. I've got evidence of all of it. I've posted a bunch of this shit. But who's going to look at it in person? Who's actually going to take an active role in person? Do I matter, or am I not black enough? Am I not woman enough? Am I not immigrant enough? Am I not indigenous enough? Am I not LGBTQ enough? When is enough enough? When do I get to be a human being entitled to the rights of the Constitution, which all of us are supposed to be entitled to? When do I get that? After all of these other groups get it, I'm fighting for all of these other groups because I observe and recognize their rights as my own. I recognize the Constitution of the United States as our Constitution. We the people, to me, means we. Amazing, isn't it? The Constitution don't mean shit if there are people who are exempt. There are two groups of people who are exempt from the Constitution. There's those in power who it doesn't apply to because, well, you don't make it apply to them, do you? If they break the law, you let them argue about it for 6 years. The other group that is exempt is the poor. Sure, they toss us a bone once in a while, but for the most part, the Constitution don't exist. You know your phone contract that you signed? The thing that you signed when you got your computer? The phone contract that you got? Those are actually all illegal according to United States law. Any contracts that they make that are contradictory to the United States law, even if you sign your name to it, is still illegal. The fact that you signed your name to it and signed away your rights shows how stupid you are for doing so. Thank goodness there are laws in place that protect you from that, but only if they're observed. Only if they are observed. So you can make a law saying that every officer has to wear body cameras for our safety, and we do need that. But what difference does it make if you're going to make a law like that if you're not going to have any consequences for people who break their body cameras repeatedly or refuse to turn them on or refuse to wear them? If it is required that you have your body camera on while you're on duty and doing these things, if the law says that you're supposed to have your body camera on, you better well have it on. But also, like Mandy Singer was saying, she believes that you should never be allowed to destroy body cameras. And I agree with that. I agree wholeheartedly. That's our taxpayer dollars paying for that. There's a good possibility that those officers have done something wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to destroy the evidence of their wrongdoing. They shouldn't be allowed to falsify evidence or outright lie to have an innocent man incarcerated repeatedly. But this is what's happened. Dan Faber, in a couple of our conversations, we talk about Missy Layla Johnson. There's a reason for that. She's one of those wingnuts. But more than that, she's a wingnut that he interacted with. So basically, I've got a bunch of severely fucked up mentally people like Layla Johnson and, of course, Kara Johnson Miles, because the cops don't want to do their jobs. I'm going to people who are impersonating other human beings, for Christ's sake. In both of those situations, Layla was not who she claimed to be, and Kara Johnson Miles, for surely, is not an autism advocate. Fuck this goddamn country. Mother, do you think they'll drop the bomb?